In the alternate course of galactic history, Queen Amidala's ship does not suffer the critical damage that would have forced it to land on Tatooine. Thanks to a successful agreement with the Gungans and quick repairs made by Naboo technicians, the royal entourage proceeds directly to Coruscant, bypassing the desert planet. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi never meet the young Anakin Skywalker, who remains an anonymous figure in Mos Espa. Thus, the lineage of the Chosen One remains hidden from the eyes of the Jedi Order. Never freed, Anakin grows up enslaved under the constant oppression of Watto. Still a child, the boy becomes increasingly withdrawn, obsessed with speed and the idea of power. His instinctive abilities, a result of the Force, flourish wildly, without control or guidance. He wins pod racing race after race, despite his age and condition. Each victory, however, only earns him more hours of labor and less dignity. He becomes a shadow of hope bound by invisible chains. Watto, eager for profit, forces the boy to work with the most dangerous types in Mos Espa. Smugglers, mercenaries, debt collectors, and thieves cross Anakin's path, hardening him more each year. Meanwhile, rumors about a human boy with abnormal reflexes and absurd racing skills begin to spread through the darker corners of the galaxy. These whispers reach the ears of Palpatine, now established as Chancellor and alert to any sign of an extraordinary being. Palpatine sends secret agents to investigate. Disguised as merchants and talent scouts, they confirm what the Chancellor already suspected. There is a boy on Tatooine who never loses races and seems to anticipate movements before they happen. Intrigued, Palpatine decides to go personally, under the pretense of a diplomatic inspection on the Outer Rim. He deceives everyone, and there, in Mos Espa, he finds Anakin, a boy with tired eyes but who emanates an uncommon raw power. The first conversation between the two is brief but revealing. Palpatine notices the restrained anger and thirst for something greater in Anakin's eyes. He begins to speak of freedom, of power, and of justice. He pretends concern for his condition and shows fascination with his natural talent. At the same time, he tries to manipulate the boy's mother, Shmi, with vague promises and calculated glances. But Shmi senses something dark in that soft-spoken man and rejects any direct proposal. The tension rises. In secret, Palpatine makes a deal with Watto. He pays a generous sum, not for the boy's freedom, but for the merchant to subject him to even harsher labor. The goal is clear: to push Anakin to the brink of emotional collapse. In a short time, the boy finds himself involved with the worst criminals on the planet, learning to survive and to distrust everything. The world becomes gray, and hope begins to take shape as silent hatred. The Chancellor also begins visiting him almost daily. He gains Anakin's trust with sweets and outrageous promises of freedom for him and his mother. Palpatine whispers into the young boy's ears and makes him believe that with brute power, anything can be achieved. As the final part of his plan, Palpatine arranges an attack on the slave village by desert bandits, the Tuskens. It is a cruel massacre, orchestrated with cold precision. Shmi is captured and taken before her son's eyes, who follows her desperately through the dunes. Hidden among the rocks, Anakin watches helplessly as the Tuskens torture and kill his mother. Her scream echoes in the boy's soul, opening a wound that will never heal. In that moment, something inside him breaks. When the dust settles, Palpatine appears among the wreckage, disguised as a benefactor who had arrived too late. He finds the boy in shock, hands dirty with sand and blood. The Chancellor's voice sounds like a whisper of comfort and power. If you had strength, none of this would have happened. He offers justice, vengeance, and the promise of a future in which Anakin will never be weak or dominated. The boy, consumed by hatred and pain, accepts. Thus, Anakin leaves behind the sands of Tatooine, now not as a freed child, but as a weapon in formation. He departs with Palpatine toward the unknown, leaving behind the screams of the past. His heart begins to mold in darkness, fed by promises of strength and revenge. What begins as a desire to never again be a victim soon transforms into a quest for absolute control. The first step toward the dark side has been taken. In the depths of the planet Mustafar, among rivers of lava and forgotten fortresses, Palpatine raised what would become the furnace of the dark side. There, hidden from any Republic or Jedi radar, he sheltered the boy he had rescued from Tatooine. Anakin grew up isolated from the world, surrounded by ancient statues of Sith Lords and echoes of the pain of those who had died there. Palpatine brought millennia-old holocrons, records of dark force techniques and forbidden knowledge. And it was there, in this cauldron of fury and darkness, that the seed of Darth Vader was planted. From a young age, Anakin was subjected to brutal training. With real blades, he faced war machines and mental torture simulations. He slept little, ate even less. Palpatine would tell him, "Pain is the blade that forges greatness. The Jedi would have let you rot on Tatooine. I am your only truth." Slowly, Anakin began to hear only that voice. In moments of doubt, the holocrons whispered, teaching him to mold hatred into strength. "Their fear is your power," echoed the voices of Darth Bane, Darth Nihilus, and other forgotten masters. Palpatine created cruel challenges. Sometimes, he locked Anakin in dark chambers with induced visions, of his mother dying again and again, of slaves screaming for help. "If you were strong enough, you would save them all," repeated the Chancellor. In one of these sessions, Anakin screamed in despair, "They should have come! The Jedi should have saved me." Palpatine only smiled. "But they didn't, because you don't belong to the light." The boy's mind began to fracture, piece by piece, until only ashes and promises of revenge remained. At 16, Anakin wielded his first red lightsaber. He was no longer a boy. His eyes burned amber and his words were measured with coldness. Palpatine called him the Hidden Chosen One. Loyalty tests included secret missions to eliminate Force-sensitive targets that could pose a threat to the Sith plan. Renegade Jedi, informants, even disposable dark apprentices. Each kill distanced him from the boy who once dreamed of pod racing. Each victory pushed the past further away. And of course, Anakin had no hesitation when, with his saber in hand, he returned to decapitate every Tusken he found along the way. It was a massacre where no one was spared. Meanwhile, the galaxy burned in another conflict. The Clone War began with the rise of Count Dooku and the Separatist Confederacy. The Republic summoned the Jedi Order to lead its clone armies, plunging the Council into a war they did not want. Obi-Wan Kenobi felt a deep void. "The Force seems to have failed us," he told Yoda. "No sign of the Chosen One. No echo of the prophecy. Only destruction." As the Jedi Temple sank, Mustafar roared silently with the arrival of the true heir to power. At 20, Anakin was presented to the world as Darth Vader. During a staged rescue operation in space, where Chancellor Palpatine pretended to be a hostage, Vader emerged alongside his master. On Count Dooku's massive capital ship, the Republic sent Obi-Wan and other Jedi. But in the middle of the charade, Dooku was caught off guard, not by the rescue, but by the true Sith plan, to be eliminated. The fight was devastating. Dooku tried to defend himself, but Vader was young, fast, and brutal. "Your time is over, old servant," he said before severing his head. Obi-Wan, witnessing it, recognized the threat too late. He ran to stop Vader from taking the Chancellor, but the fight between the two masters was inevitable. The battle raged through the flaming corridors of the ship. Obi-Wan, with experience and refined technique, tried to contain the young warrior. But Vader, consumed by hatred, was unpredictable. In a furious move, he tore the Jedi Master's arm off. "I only came to prove my existence," defeated Jedi Master. "For now, I do not plan to take the Chancellor's head. For now," he said with his blade resting against Obi-Wan's neck. Then Darth Vader threw the Jedi Master aside with the power of the Force and departed. Obi-Wan fled, staggering, to alert the Council and to return the Chancellor to Coruscant. With Dooku dead, Palpatine accelerated his plans. Darth Vader became the executor of the will of the new empire eager to be born. On shadowy missions, he eliminated Jedi who had escaped the battlefield. His presence was a shadow, his existence a secret known only to a few. Legends of a handsome warrior with golden eyes began to circulate among deserters and survivors. And meanwhile, the Chancellor amassed power in the Senate, convincing everyone that he acted in the name of order. Peace requires sacrifice, he would say. No one knew the real cost. Palpatine, now older but still cunning, further poisoned the heart of his apprentice. They will call you a monster, but they will fear you, and fear is power. Vader, in turn, rarely spoke without calculation. He was no longer the boy from Mos Espa. He was the embodiment of vengeance, shaped by time and pain. His nightmares, however, never ceased. He saw his mother screaming. He felt the heat of Mustafar, and even surrounded by glory, there were nights when he slept with his hand around his throat, his own throat. While the Jedi tried to balance the war, and leaders like Mace Windu and Yoda searched for answers in the temple archives, the true danger grew in the shadows. Obi-Wan tried to warn the Council. I saw his eyes. The force that Sith possessed was greater than what exists in each of us. Not even Master Yoda could have resisted that presence. There is a new Sith among us, and he has been very well trained. With Palpatine's power advancing over the Galactic Senate, few dared to raise their voices against his emergency decrees and growing authority. Padme Amidala, however, emerged as a symbol of calm yet firm resistance. Alongside Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, she led a group that believed in democracy above imposed security. Jar Jar Binks, her faithful follower, actively participated in missions with Padme. United, they traveled between systems trying to prevent the galaxy from bending to fear. The Jedi, divided between the battlefield and politics, decided to observe this new enemy from a distance. But Darth Vader himself chose to act. On a sabotage mission in Naboo, where Padme was leading negotiations with neutral systems, Vader felt her presence. Palpatine commanded his disciple in a sinister tone. She is the symbol of the opposition. Erase her. Vader invaded the diplomatic ship, annihilating guards with lethal precision. But when he found Padme, something unexpected happened. She didn't beg, nor did she scream. She simply stared at him with resolve and fought the enemy, even if she had no real chance against him. And that disarmed him on the inside. Vader took her to Mustafar, not as a common prisoner of war, but as a personal curiosity. He placed her in an isolated wing of the fortress, decorated with suffocating luxury. "You should be dead," he said at their first meeting. "Then why didn't you kill me?" Padme asked firmly. He did not answer. For days, he watched her movements through the cameras, as if waiting for her to show fear, but she never did. Gradually, Vader stopped harassing her and began to provide better accommodations for his secret prisoner. So she read, cared for the flowers brought by automaton servants, and sometimes sang to herself. Vader didn't understand it. On silent nights, he asked himself who this woman was. His dreams, once consumed by fire and blood, now carried gentle traces, a calm face amidst the storm. On one visit, he found her sitting before the obsidian window. "Have you ever loved someone?" she asked, unafraid. "Love is a weakness," he replied. "Or is it a strength that the Sith fear?" she provoked. Vader hesitated. Inside, something stirred, an uncomfortable doubt. And each day beside her made the prison on Mustafar less solid than the chains he himself carried. Padme began to notice cracks in her captor's emotional armor. After many, many days, while the whole galaxy was giving up hope of finding the senator alive, he brought desert flowers to Padme without knowing why. "They die quickly out of place," he said. "Just like you will die if you challenge my master." She looked deep into his golden eyes. "Or maybe I will bloom as you could have if someone had reached out a hand." Vader walked away without a response. But in the solitude of the corridor, he clenched his fist tightly. What was that feeling? It wasn't rage nor pain. It was something else. One night, she challenged him directly. "Do you believe in redemption?" He replied in a muffled voice, "There is no return or redemption in this world." She walked up to him, facing the reflection of her face in his dark mask. "Maybe you just need to remember who you were." For an instant, Vader felt the soft touch of memory. The boy from Mos Espa, the smell of oil and sand, his mother's smile. "I have no name beyond the one my master gave me," she whispered. "Maybe your true name is waiting to be rescued." The bond grew silent and confusing. Vader began to protect her from any outside influence. He refused to follow new orders from Palpatine that might somehow lead the Emperor to discover her. He made up excuses, diverted resources, prolonged the stay. She, in turn, realized more and more that the monster she had heard about in the Senate corridors was not a complete monster. There was pain there, and a deep desire to be understood. "You don't see me as an enemy," she said, "and that terrifies you." In Mustafar's warm corridors, between training chambers and silent dinners, Vader began to daydream about something he had never had choice. Palpatine, the absolute master, had never given him alternatives. But Padme, with simple words and a calm gaze, offered a different path. And that shook his convictions. For the first time in his life, Darth Vader hesitated in the face of a mission, in the face of an order. Because before him, there was no enemy. There was someone who saw in him more than the mask and the title. And that was more dangerous than any Jedi. The prisoner Padme always waited for him, with the same calm gaze, the same unspoken question. Over time, he began to speak, first with scattered phrases, then with full memories. He told her about his childhood in the sands of Tatooine, about his mother and a powerful visitor who promised him freedom. He told her about the master who shaped him, who saved him from pain, and who fed him with it. Padme listened attentively. Every word from Vader was a window into the soul he tried to hide. On one of those nights, he confided, "It was the master who organized my rise, who forged me in fire, who gave me everything." She interrupted him calmly. "Or maybe he only gave you pain." He looked away. On another night, after one more dark account, Padme murmured, "What if the same man who took you from the desert was also the one who sent the Tuscans?" Vader froze. The doubt, dormant until then, awoke with force. For days, he remained silent. He searched through Palpatine's hidden archives, cross-referenced old mission reports, spied on encrypted conversations between Imperial officers. And there, among distorted reports, he found the truth. Palpatine had paid hunters to incite the Tuscans against the slave settlements. The massacre of Anakin's village was orchestrated. It wasn't random. It was a lesson, a test, the flame that would mold him. Vader fell to his knees, breathing heavily. "He did everything," he whispered to himself. Padme was waiting in the same hall as always. He approached, removed his hood, and spoke with the most human voice he had ever used. "You were right." Padme simply touched his metal glove. "Then do something with that truth." That night, Vader remained silent, staring into the flames of the planet that symbolized his prison. Vengeance grew, now not as an instrument of power, but as a response to the manipulation he had suffered his entire life. Vader began to hide his steps. He forged reports, concealed Padme from Imperial surveillance, and prepared the fortress on Mustafar as a trap. Palpatine, however, was not blind. He sensed the apprentice's hesitation, smelled the presence of someone hidden. In a dark holocommunicator, the master spoke coldly. "You've changed. You're hiding something." Vader maintained the facade, but Palpatine demanded, "Bring me your prisoner. Kill her in front of me." Vader hesitated. "She's just a political voice, no real threat." But Palpatine growled, "She represents weakness, and I do not tolerate weakness." That was the limit. For the first time, Vader answered firmly, "I won't do it." Palpatine watched in silence, eyes narrowed. "Do you dare defy a direct order, Lord Vader?" he murmured. They argued and, in the end, ended the transmission. Vader turned to Padme. "He's coming." She did not retreat. "You are not alone." For the first time, he believed. The next day, Mustafar was silenced on all frequencies. No ships entered or left. Darth Vader awaited his master, not as an apprentice, but as a rival. The Sith's forge prepared to purify his own pain in flames. The confrontation between Vader and Palpatine was more than physical. It was the collision of two worlds. The old master, cruel and manipulative, and the rebellious son, forged in hatred and now armed with truth. Force lightning crossed the room. Red sabers clashed with sonic explosions. Palpatine tried to break him with words. "I created you, Anakin. Without me, you are nothing." But Vader replied with fire in his eyes. "You created me, so I could destroy you." The fight tore through walls and collapsed structures. Palpatine used his lightning to pursue Vader, but they were soon blocked by the red saber. Darth Vader used the Force to bring down massive structures on Palpatine, but the Sith was agile and escaped with ease. It was only with Padme's help that Vader managed to corner his former master. Palpatine was lured into one of the prepared traps, a power-inhibiting cage. Palpatine was furious and, between lies and promises, begged for mercy and pity. "Please, Lord Vader, you must help me. I made you into what you are today," said the politician. But now Vader and Padme were in control and took the moment to mock the Chancellor. "What do you think we should do with him, Anakin? Should we throw him into the lava river or toss him into the garbage compactor?" The woman said in a slightly more cheerful tone while the Chancellor listened, distressed. "I think we could cut off all his limbs and drop him into the pit of that creature with hundreds of thousands of teeth," he said, making his first joke since the day he met the Dark Lord. The truth is, Padme, even as a prisoner, had done wonders for Anakin's spirit. In the end, they decided to notify and hand Palpatine over to Obi-Wan and all the other Jedi Masters. Padme cared for each of Anakin's wounds. He was Anakin Skywalker once again. The flames of Mustafar no longer imprisoned him. He decided to return to Coruscant. At the Senate, under improvised escort, he surrendered himself to the Jedi who came to arrest Palpatine. "I bring truths and regret. Padme convinced me to be better, and I will also reveal all the atrocities that Palpatine, or rather Darth Sidious, caused in the galaxy." Yoda and Obi-Wan, surprised, listened. "He wants to destroy what he helped build," said Padme. "In times of war, even the most cautious masters recognize a gesture of redemption." The Order hesitated, but accepted. With Anakin's secrets, the Empire began to crumble. Order 66 was never executed. Palpatine, exposed as a Sith Lord, had his image destroyed before the galaxy and was obliterated by the Jedi Council. Separatist generals were captured. The war ended not in glory, but in confession. The Force was finally beginning to find balance. But for Anakin, the journey was far from over. Exiled with Padme on Naboo, he tried to learn what it meant to live in peace. The two never officially married, but walked together, far from the spotlight, in silence and reconciliation. Well, only after Anakin, as he was once again called, paid for the crimes he committed and was gradually cleansed of the dark side's evil presence.